everybody. I'm Zach.
I'm Jesse, and you are our wonderful, fantastic, just so great patrons. We had a wonderful live stream a couple days ago.
Yep.
It feels like it was only yesterday. And, I mean, we had a great time. We tested out a couple new different things.
Yeah. We were able to do a call-in on the show. So, like, with Discord, we were able to actually talk to people live, and it felt really fun. It was like a radio call-in show, except we had a video component to it.
And I will say that the audio quality of Discord was
fantastic.
Way better than a phone conversation.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, hello, I'm David from blah, blah, blah. And you're like, I can't hear his question. But with Discord, it was really, really nice.
Crystal clear.
Our live streams are so fun.
Also, what I loved about, so normally our live stream is just us talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
Here we got to talk to actual people, ask them questions, listen to them. That was the part that made it special for me.
I enjoyed actually hearing, tone conveyed through audio as opposed to through text where you're like, are they mad at me? And it's like, no, they're being sarcastic. But anyway, let's
get into it.
We have some news.
So this first story, I was super excited about it, and I heard about it from a bunch of our viewers, and I was like, this could be the answers to all of our problems.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it? So this is a company called LanzaTech. So CEO Jennifer Holmgren says she wants to show the world that carbon reuse is feasible, possible, and can make economic sense. This is a 6-year-old Chicago area biotech company. They have basically designed a bioreactor, which is filled with microbes that eat waste gases and produce ethanol. Now, Holmgren estimates that if LanzaTech bioreactors were in place at the world's largest steelworks, accounting for roughly 65% of all production, it would be the equivalent of taking 55 million cars off the road. So when I heard that, I was like, this is great, Jesse. Have you heard of this?
And I was immediately skeptical because I am very skeptical, especially about claims about people reducing carbon emissions from carbon-producing sources.
So let's show the video that they put out explaining kind of in an overview of how their technology works.
Right.
Now, I want to point out that CEO Jennifer Holmgren said, we can unleash new ideas, technologies, and investment that will quickly reduce our dependence on fresh fossils. This is not science fiction, it's happening. And it's right now, it is being tested in Japan, making ethanol from garbage, and at a Belgian and Chinese steel mill, reducing supposedly their carbon emissions as well. So I was like, how could this be bad, Jesse?
I don't want to vilify this thing. It is a tool which does allow you to do a pretty interesting thing, which is to take waste products of burning something, take the CO2 and turn it into ethanol. That is great. Okay, I'm not saying that that's bad. This as a technology is good. It is all dependent on how you use it, because what you can get is now you have ethanol, which is great, and you can turn it into a fuel source, which, okay, great, kind of.
Why kind of?
The kind of is that you're then going to go burn that fuel, which means that you're going to release, the CO2 and the PM 2.5 particles from that burning process.
Their argument, I think, was that this is recycling carbon, so that this carbon would have just gone up into the atmosphere under its first use, like making steel. And they're arguing, we made some steel, we recaptured the carbon, and now we get to reuse it to, say, fly a jet. Why is that bad?
It's because you need to... We need to change all of our processes. This might be a good idea if we want to, say, take a process that is very hard to change over to something fully renewable, something fully sustainable, and convert it into something that's a lot better. But If the byproduct is fuel and you're going to put that fuel in something that's going to go burn it, then you are still it is better. I don't want to say that it's not better than you dig up a bunch of fossil fuels, you burn it, and then in order to power this car over here, you have to dig up a bunch of fossil fuels and then burn it again. In this case, you're burning it, you're putting it through this reactor, which I don't know how it fully works. I don't know what kind of other things you need to do to have the microbes be able to do it, what kind of energy needs to go into it. There needs to be some sort of energy that goes into it because that's how entropy works. So I don't know exactly how that's going to work. Let's say you can use it, let's say all the energy can come from solar panels. That's great. So now you have this fuel, which you can kind of use again. That is not bad, but it is making it easier for fossil fuel companies to basically say, hey, do you want some of our waste from the refinery, which is now fuel again? We're being green. But at the same time, they're just making it easier to burn fossil fuels. It's easier to say it's okay to keep burning fossil fuels because we made it 50% greener.
Right. I mean, if you look at their investors, so they're now on their D round, and so they're up at about $100 million in their D round. Almost all the investors have something to do with the chemical or oil industry.
Right. And I'm not
Petronas being one of the biggest. And so you got to ask yourself, if the companies that are investing it are mainly oil companies, that is because they want to be able to label what they're doing as green. I mean, they are going to be able to say using this technology that they've lowered their carbon footprint.
Right.
And so for them, that's a good thing. And again, I'm kind of agreeing with Jesse here. I'm not saying it's bad what they're doing, but I don't like when people grab onto these stories and then go, we've done it. We've solved the problem, everybody. We can burn gas and be green.
Right. It ignores PM 2.5 pollution. It ignores all of that. This is a very, very nuanced thing. It all depends on what you do with it. What you could do was take all the ethanol, those fuels, and try to turn them into some kind of plastic or some way to try and sequester all of the carbon that is now trapped in your ethanol.
I mean, that's a good point. You can take the byproduct of this process and make plastic out of it. So that would be a better way to make plastic.
Unless that plastic then makes it into the oceans and it's being eaten by fish and then it's being eaten by people.
Right. I mean, so the nuance here is we don't want to make it seem easier to do the wrong thing. And that's what this tends to do. Instead of looking at the true solutions, which are completely green, like solar and wind and so forth.
And hey, they're not perfect, okay? Like digging cobalt out of the ground is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. However, it is far, 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 far better than digging fossil fuels out of the ground and burning it into the atmosphere.
What we've been able to do is eliminate cobalt from batteries coming up very soon.
Right.
And that's the beauty of trying to work towards this technology is you can get it cleaner and cleaner.
Right.
Whereas
I'm aiming for the best.
Right.
I'm aiming for the best solutions. That's why I didn't go buy a hybrid. I bought an EV.
Right.
We want to get
that out of the chain.
I wanted the best. And I am not saying I wanted the best electric car. I bought a Leaf first because I wanted an electric car more than anything else because I wanted to do the right thing first.
Right.
As soon as possible without making compromises to what I was doing.
Well, you made some compromises.
I mean, without making compromises to what I was striving for, which was to be green.
What I'm saying is you actually took a few compromises to drive a Leaf.
I did.
Because you cared more about the environment.
And you know what? We have to actually do that. Right. There's no magical, solution. When people are talking about the new Green Deal and they're saying like, oh, it's going to be so expensive. I'm not saying the Green Deal is like, oh, a silver bullet solution to all of our problems. It is a non-binding, resolution.
It's just a goal.
It's just a goal, which has a lot of socialist agenda items stuffed into it. And if that's not your thing, then you would be against it. I get that. So I'm trying to throw a bunch of nuance into about 45 seconds worth of talking. But if your argument is that the Green New Deal is going to cost a lot of money to do all of these infrastructure changes, how much do you think the infrastructure change and the cost of climate change is going to be? When all of these cities are underwater and all these millions and millions of people need new homes that the homes suddenly don't exist because they're underwater. How much do you think that's going to cost?
And it's going to cost it at a time when we can't afford it because our economy will be in ruins. I mean, when you put cities underwater, your economy's ruined by that point.
Right.
You have to do it. When you're going to fix the roof, the day to fix the roof is when the sun is shining, not when it's raining out.
Absolutely. So, our economy is strong right now. We can actually do some things to hopefully mitigate climate change, to prevent it from being so horrible, so atrociously awful that it will just, completely wipe out civilization as we know it. Let's try to keep that from happening. I think you're all on board with it. I don't know why we have to get up every day and say this to you guys. You're our patrons.
Well, no, because I think when we hear about stories like this company, LanzaTech, we want it to be true so badly. We heard this, for instance, when Vice did a story about a very similar company a few months ago. Everyone wants it to be so easy. Oh, great, we've solved the problem. That would be great. And if one day a company comes along and solves a problem, we'll tell you about it. We're not going to hide it.
Right.
It's just that this doesn't solve the problem. It is a tool in the toolbox, but if it's used improperly, it actually keeps the problem going longer.
Right. And in fact, you said when a company comes along that does solve the problem, we do talk about Tesla an awful lot. And there's
Right.
it's not a coincidence that we do that.
Exactly.
They are pretty committed. It's not like they're making hybrids or they're making gas cars.
Right.
They're not like, oh, well, we have to somehow pay for it.
No,
they knew.
And when Elon sees a problem, he goes all out to solve it properly. When he wants to do a rocket, he does reusable rockets. He gets us to another planet soon. Like, that's his goal. When he wants to solve traffic, it's boring company. I'm going to solve traffic.
It's true. He's not like, I'm going to make a new kind of traffic lane.
No, and when we talk about OpenAI, like we did on the show earlier, it's not like he goes, well, that's tough. I don't want to, that's going to be pretty busy. He just dives right in. Right. And I mean, what we saw this week about that OpenAI story, we're going to be talking about that a lot up and coming.
I know.
Because that is going to change life as we know it, probably bigger than anything happening this year. I may be proven wrong, but I think that this technology is moving faster than anyone ever thought.
Right. I mean, let's talk about the OpenAI.
Okay.
I mean, we were originally going to talk a little bit about it. We're going to do another speech kind of thing, analysis between two speeches to see if you could tell the difference.
No, I'm really interested to see if people can tell the
Right.
difference between those two speeches. Not to say that with, a scholar that you can figure it out.
Right.
I'm just saying, if you just listen to both quickly.
If for a layman, for most people, right.
And not only that, it can write anything you want. So, for instance, there's an example on OpenAI, and the link is in the show. Go there and see. There's an example of a kid's essay from like high school about the Civil War. It's written as if it's a kid. So when you read it, you're like, that sounds like a high schooler wrote it. And
I wish I had that in middle school. I wish I could tell the computer write my essay.
But that's
for
what
me.
I'm talking about. When this gets out, which it has to eventually, how are we going to keep every student from writing their essay with the OpenAI?
Right. And how would
program?
you be able to go back
You
and
won't.
be like, haha, see, it's AI. You'd
mean-
have been like, I just don't know how to spell Mr. Johnson.
Do you realize how much plagiarism software is out there right now that high schools use because they have to, in colleges, to catch students from plagiarizing?
Right.
The problem with this will be it's not plagiarizing. It's writing a completely new and fresh essay.
Right.
The other thing I want to point out is we all thought that the first people to go with the Singularity and OpenAI and robots would be the low-end jobs, right? Stuffing boxes and stuff like that.
And to some extent, that's true. The lowest end of manufacturing
this could
is...
but this could actually be the first to go, because if in a year or two they get this perfected, do you think any TV show, any movie production house is going to hire a writer? Why would you? A room full of writers versus one computer program that can write.
that can spit out like 100 of these like in a span of a couple minutes.
Think about the Game of Thrones, right?
Right.
They were waiting and waiting for J.R.R. Martin to finish, an episode. If they could have just been like, boop, slide the sliders a little bit. We want more dragons. We want more Tigerians, and then go.
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, if you think about computer programs versus an author, the computer program doesn't get old. It doesn't get infirm. It doesn't forget about things. It doesn't get bad, worse at writing.
No.
It's going to only get better at writing, it seems. And you could tweak, certain aspects and then just spit out just more content that you could possibly imagine. I mean,
It would put Stephen King to shame.
Right. I mean, he is one of the most prolific writers ever. He gets up every morning and writes hours and hours worth of
Pages.
pages and pages of books, But right, and some of the reason that he's so good is that he's written so much, and so if you
Well, yeah, I mean, this program could read everything any human has ever written, watch probably any movie that has ever been made, and then write in any style. And we might say like, well, it could never be as good as a human. It'll be better than a human because all a human is my brain is filled with some memories of books I've read, and they're very bad memories. Whereas this would be perfect memories, and it could research anything in a split second. So I know it's hard to wrap your head around this, but this is going to replace writers.
It could almost so like, I mean, if we're imagining our singularity future, let's imagine like a really good case scenario, one where it's like, yeah, we really can't hang with the super smart AIs, but they're like really nice to us. Imagine if you could go on to Netflix and there were just billions upon billions upon billions of shows that you could watch, and they were all really, really, really good.
Isn't that already the case?
No, because I mean, like for a specific topic, if you're like, oh, I want like 1865 detective documentary with robots.
Right.
You could actually
have it right on demand.
Imagine if you wrote it on demand. You'd go onto Netflix and you're like,
I
want a story that involves mech warriors and also a princess, and it all happens in the Greek and Roman times.
It's going to be that way. Yes.
And it'll just be like, oh, okay, here you go.
Yeah, because, I mean, you take Avatar technology and you take this technology of writing it, and that's what you've got.
Avatar technology?
You know, the movie Avatar. Like, it's all digitized.
That was all motion cap.
Right, but I mean, it's showing that basically we can replace human actors.
Right. Or it could do the same thing with video games. It could do, I mean, lots of different things that it could do.
I'm just saying, we all seem to think that there's this magic 40 years from now thing. We always say that. Well, in 40 years, because you know why we say that? Because it's comfortable. Because we all know that in 40 years, whatever age we are now, probably won't be significant to us later.
Right.
What I'm saying is we're probably talking 40 months from now or 4 days from now. Like, this is technology that's here right now. And why do you think OpenAI shut it down? Their whole philosophy is to keep it open.
Right. And we're talking about like the best case scenarios of like this magic Netflix that you can do, but there are so many worse things that you could have it do. It's deadly scary. Like, you know, I don't want to sugarcoat this and it being like sounding awesome. You know, you can have, you know, with the unicorn story that I read on TTN, where it's like it can just write a whole bunch of gobbledygook, you know, but not really gobbledygook.
Well, it can write nonfiction. You could tell it to go look up a story on the latest Model 3 story, and it could write it in any style you want.
Except, where does it get its facts from?
Where do we get our facts from?
Right, but I mean, like, we have internal. I know that
well, see, that's the part you're not getting. It's going to have that eventually too. It's going to have it better than you and I, because when we read a story, we go, well, this is probably right because it was written by Electric, right? But it's going to be able to go and read all the stories. I know, but it's going to weigh all the stories. It's going to know who the writers of all the stories are. I'm just telling you, you can't picture it now, but it's going to be able to do a far deeper job than we can do.
We're not going to be able to get it to work perfectly in all cases. I don't think that you're completely wrong.
Oh, I better than humans are.
I don't think you're going to be able to get to that point because it's going to mess up so badly that you're going to ruin all civilization. You're going to basically, if you have it start writing news stories or something like that, and especially if you have another AI or something that has some certain directive of like, you know.
No, I know that you're going to that dystopian universe of that. I'm talking about
quite super easy to slip into, and it is exactly why Elon has OpenAI.
And why do you think Elon, who's a member of OpenAI, who's on the board, basically shut this down? He knows how powerful this is.
Yeah, and it's really scary. And
it's really scary. And I don't think, I mean, if you're watching at home and you're just like, they're talking about writing stuff, how can that be scary? Writing is how we all communicate. And so if this thing is opened up so that we can no longer tell who wrote something,
right,
and that means
couple that with technology where you can have faces
reporting the news,
whatever words you want, all of a sudden, I mean, how do you know that what you're seeing is real unless it's, you know, unless you can just sort of reach out and touch that person's face, you know, it doesn't. And how much of what you see is, you know, face to face.
And I mean,
it's crazy. This is so crazy. We're sounding more and more crazy as we talk about this story because it's so wild.
This was one of the things that everyone said, well, the singularity can't happen as fast as you think, people like Ray Kurzweil, because it can't do this. And that part was the writing. And I'm just telling you, go to OpenAI, read some of their examples, and see if you can tell.
Right. It's terrifying.
All right, let's go to something that's not as terrifying.
Let's get some, what is this, comedy relief.
Comedy relief. Go ahead.
Just play it.
Gordon, it's all very reminiscent of 2018 at the moment. Concerns about social media policy, concerns about executives leaving. Why didn't the market sell off more?
It remains a mystery to us. I mean, you had the general counsel leave after 2 months on the job. This was a real, if you will, adult in the room, someone who is respected and was thought to be overlooking Mr. Musk. But what's interesting is the tweet last night that they were going to produce 500,000 cars this year came on the same day that in their 10K they said they were looking to achieve 7,000 Model 3s per week of production, or 350 per year by the end of the year. Yeah. So it appears that there's no oversight still, and we found the tweet yesterday astonishing, quite frankly.
So, Gordon, I'm just wondering, to follow up on Caroline's point, shares down a whole whopping 1.3% on this misfire from Elon Musk, yet another misfire, plus the exit of general counsel. At what point, you might be right in the long run with your bearish view on Tesla, but at what point is it just unprofitable to keep going with this short wager, given how much short interest is out there?
We would be aggressively shorting Tesla right now with all of our might. Listen, there's a couple of things we think propping the stock up. Just yesterday on CNBC, there was an analyst who has a $4,000 price target on Tesla and talks about their full self-drive technology and their ability to effectively issue a fleet of self-driving taxis. If you look at the leaders in full self-drive technology, the Waymos of the world, et cetera, what they said is that they don't even know if by 2025 we'll be there with respect to FSD technology, full self-drive. So I think that people are putting ridiculous targets on Tesla. And if you look at the numbers, look, Tesla is trading at a forward EV to EBITDA multiple of 16 times. The rest of its peers, Ford at 2 times, General Motors at 3, Fiat Chrysler at 1. Tesla's CapEx, less is depreciation,
hold on a second.
amortization.
Gordon, hold on one second. Because honestly, this has been the argument made about Tesla for a long time. My question is, how long can the bears stand and afford to remain bearish? At what point do they just lose all their money and they got to leave? Because it's expensive. Right.
So let me answer that question specifically. So think about this. The promise of Tesla in 2016 was we're going to provide you with a $27,500 car that you're literally going to be able to climb in your back seat and let it dry you from coast to coast, and there's going to be free supercharging across America. None of those things are true, but on that promise, they garnered 450,000 reservations. They've essentially burned through all those reservations, and they've had virtually no competition in the full EV, electric vehicle space. Now you have real competition coming in, the Audi e-tron, the Jaguar E-Pace, the Porsche Taycan, etc. So this is the first year you're going to see real competition. Again, what I was saying is that if you look at their investment, their CapEx less depreciation, amortization, PT&E, it's basically flat in Q4 18.
Yeah.
In Q4 of 17, that number was like 600 million. Quarter over quarter, the revenues we believe are going to shrink in Q1. Their deliveries are going to decline in Q1, and we think they're going to report a loss in Q1 after racking up $976 million in losses last year. The point is, we think the pen hits the paper this year. We think the bulls in the stock have to come to the realization that they're not going to hit their financial targets, and we think they get really hurt in the back half of this year. So to your question, when does it pay off? We think it pays off this year as competition comes in. Clearly there's financial issues, but we don't think the SEC is on their job, so we don't think that's what's going to bail the bears out. We think when the stock falls, the SEC will come in and see a lot of the things that we see. But we do think competition is real, and we do think the issues at Tesla are real. We think Q1 is going to be the start to what we think is going to be a precipitous fall in the stock down to our price target of $72 per share.
I think, wait, you know what? This might be OpenAI. This Gordon guy can't be real, because how could a guy be this dumb?
How could a guy not know how to pronounce Waymo?
Oh, it's not Wamo?
It's not Wamo.
And it's not the E-Pace?
It's not the E-Pace.
Oh.
It's the I-Pace.
So that's how we caught
You're an analyst. That's your job. You should know how to pronounce these things.
No, but take a look at his numbers here. In TipRanks, which ranks analysts. He's number 8,740 out of 11,912 experts.
And we've talked about this before. We've brought up Gordon at least 2 other times. And both of the times, he made a fool of himself on live television in front of the entire nation. He said some of the stupidest things I've ever heard uttered on television.
And he did again.
And he's done it again. Wow. I can't believe he keeps coming back. Can't believe they keep inviting him back on air. I wonder why that keeps happening.
Bloomberg, I mean, I know you might have done this just to have some fun on a Monday or something, but...
No, they didn't do... I mean, let's be honest. They didn't do that. This guy... He has absolutely nothing to lose as an analyst.
He's paid. I mean, he's in the pocket of somebody. He can't.
There's
you
no
couldn't
other
stay
way.
open as an analyst. If you put your shingle out on your door,
You're
and
like, hey, I lose
let me help."
0.7% annually. Check me out, guys. I have a success rate of 52%. That's like a lucky quarter. I mean, what on earth could you possibly be asking this guy about?
Right.
How could he be wrong? You know, that's worse than if you just put your money in a mutual fund. Okay, you know, it's not like we're going through some depression or something and he doesn't, you know, it's just times are tough. We've gone through like a really nice little economic spell
Just
here.
to give you an example, I mean, Kathy Wood from RQ, if you'd put money with her in January, you would have 23% more money today in February.
If you put in
23% more.
and
Like,
and if you went with Gordon here, you'd have negative 0.7%.
His conjecture makes absolutely no sense because he starts with lies. He says things like, well, all these people, 400,000 people got on the list for the Model 3, and they all wanted to sleep in the back of their car and pay $27,500 for it. And it's like, that was never promised by Tesla.
No.
That might be what they were hoping.
It could have been what they were hoping
But that
for.
is not what was promised by
and
Tesla.
it wasn't what everyone, not the whole 400,000. I know because I knew that, you know, I wasn't going to be able to drive, have the car drive me while I slept immediately after I bought the car.
Everything he says every time is what he says the next time, which is it's going to happen this quarter.
Right.
And when
He
they say to
talked
him,
about-
like, aren't you losing tons of money? He's like, but it's going to happen now.
Right. He's like the boy who cried wolf. This is the 3rd time. This is where in the story all the townspeople don't believe him.
Right.
Which means, I guess, if we follow the logic of the story that he's going to be right the next time, I don't know. But I mean, this is just, it's just so frustrating when he's like, oh, there's all this competition coming out, like E-Pace. It's like, dude, do you know how long the E-Pace has been out?
The I-Pace.
No, the E-Pace has been out longer because it's a gas car.
Right.
What an absolute idiot! How do you get on the air if you don't even know? Wamo?
Bud.
Wamo? If they were gonna pay him,
Maybe he's talking about a new company we don't know about. Wamo.
God, Wamo? He didn't even correct himself.
I know. And they didn't bother to correct him either because it was hilarious. All right.
holy crap.
Let's move on to this story, which
Yeah.
is pretty funny. So there was a stolen Tesla that was recovered. So last Sunday in Riverside, California, a Tesla vehicle was reported stolen out of a parking garage. Now, it's unclear how the thief got access to the vehicle, but officers eventually caught up to the vehicle, and the thief refused to stop and led the police in a chase through city streets. They eventually pulled back because they judged that the situation was too dangerous. The thief went back on the highway, and the owner kept updating dispatch using the location tracking feature on the Tesla mobile app. He eventually informed the police that the vehicle was running out of charge and the thief had to stop on the highway. He was then arrested by the CHP. His name is Filiberto Felix, 30 years old, and he was arrested on suspicion of taking a car without the owner's consent, felony evasion, and probation violations, and he was put in custody in lieu of posting a bond on $100,000 bail. Now, this brought up a interesting question that Jesse and I tried to figure out, and we shot a Model 3 tip of the week that we'll let you guys know about. We wanted to see if you could somehow use the app to stop this from happening. We're going to call it Tesla Thief Shutdown Mode. No.
Name
to be determined.
Name to be determined in the future. Yeah.
But we were wondering if
Thief Buster.
Yeah, well, I like that. If you could hit a button on your app that once you knew your car had been stolen, something like a shutdown button, maybe type in your PIN number, and that could slow down your car and finally make it stop. Now, right now, built into the app is a similar feature which you use when you have, let's say, your kids drive the car and you want to limit their speed. You can limit it all the way down to 50 miles an hour. So we went out and tested it. You'll see that on an upcoming Model 3 tips. But basically, that could work, right? I mean, because we
Sort of.
I mean, with very little coding,
Yes.
this could be a thing. So if anyone watching today is like a Tesla employee or Elon, I don't know if you're a Patreon of ours, shutdown mode, thief shutdown mode, could be a very cool option.
Right. So the idea would be that it's going to just slowly decrease the top speed. So right now with speed limit mode, it lets you get up to whatever the speed is. It also puts the car in chill mode, and you can't unchill it, which
Right.
is brilliant for teenagers because half the fun is the acceleration.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think have the top speed and then just keep decreasing the top speed slowly. The perp is going to realize that his car is being slowly speed limited. The car could tell the thief that was happening, or the car could just say like, Tesla knows your location. The police are on their way.
Or it could fake them out and be like, rear motor broken. Stop car immediately. I am broken.
I will light on fire. This car will self-destruct.
Oh, I like that.
I like that.
Battery overheating. And it could turn the heat up too.
It should turn the heat up. It should do a lot of different things.
Warning.
But basically, it's going to be bringing down the top speed of the car until it gets down to about 5 miles an hour. And then I think it should turn on a feature that I think it should have already, which would be like bumper mode. And what that would do is it'll use the ultrasonic sensors. It already can detect distances, right? It can be sometimes faked out by different objects, but for the most part, it's nice and sensitive. And what it could do would basically prevent the criminal from ramming the car at going at 5 miles an hour. Basically, you'd be on the phone with the police and you'd say like, okay, I'm initiating thief buster mode. The car is going to begin slowing down. Once he gets to about 5 miles an hour, you should be able to pull in front of the car and it won't hit you, which means that your car now remains scratch-free.
I love it.
And the perp goes to jail.
I love it. And plus, I mean, it can be recording him the whole time, so we have footage of what he did and his face and stuff, or her face.
Right.
And see, we've solved another problem here on the show. It's amazing what we can do here. Here's some cool little history that I found out. Back in 1978, there was an engineer named Steve Fair, and he had this idea that you could take a motorcycle and make it electric. So he took some lead acid car batteries, and he took a 1971 Harley Davidson XLH Sportster, which was a cool bike at the time, and he took off the engine, took off the gas tank, put in his big batteries. You can see here it's not super pretty, but he showed that with off-the-shelf parts, he could make an electric motorcycle. Now, he tried to get Harley Davidson interested, and most of the company was not, except designer Brooke Stevens, who is a famed Harley Davidson designer, took interest. So the two of them started working on this motorcycle. They tested it for 360 miles right near the testing grounds in Wisconsin near Harley Davidson's headquarters. And they, the stats are not impressive. I mean, it was a 600-pound bike, and it could go top speed of 50 miles an hour. It had a 2-kilowatt motor, so it produced 0 to 30 miles an hour in about 5 to 6 seconds.
So it's impressive.
But it was just a proof of concept. It was this was 1978, right? Batteries other than lead acid didn't exist. There weren't a whole bunch of people making cool electric motors. So they're just showing like, could this work? Yes, it could. Harley Davidson was like, no, not interested. I just want to throw this out. What if Harley Davidson back in 1978 had gone, wow, that's pretty cool. Let's throw, we're the largest, motorcycle manufacturer in the U.S. Let's, put a little research and development into this.
Right.
And if they had just let some engineers work on it, then maybe a few years later in the 80s, they would have had a cooler bike with some cooler technology. And then maybe in the 90s, when the lithium-ion batteries came out, they could have jumped over to that. I'm just saying, if they had done this, because they are doing it now with Livewire, they would have been 40 years ahead.
I agree. I think, it's kind of sad that this didn't happen. You can kind of see why it didn't happen. It's because basically, with the lead acid at the time, it just wasn't very compelling as a motorcycle, and people who don't think ahead, people who are only thinking about the now sort of thing, were thinking like, yeah, right now it doesn't look like anything. This looks stupid. And so, who cares? And it's never going to happen because I can't think critically about the future. Right. And I will give them credit. It was the 70s and battery technology was nowhere near there. And you probably didn't see any end in sight in terms of like the limits of battery technology. But yeah, I mean, if they were at least intrigued and were like, hey, you know what, this would be useful in certain applications. Yeah, it would have been nice if they had been thinking about it, at least thinking about it.
It would have been more than nice. They would be basically they would have a whole brand that would be dedicated to this. They would have a probably legion of fans that would be already driving these bikes, and they would have the huge market share now. And now they're just starting to dip their toe into the water, and they're having to start from scratch, basically.
I agree.
So, yeah, I'm just throwing that out there. Interesting to see because it has its ramifications for today. There's going to be plenty of engineers out there today and designers who come up with ideas that we all think are wacky, and then they turn to the next iPhone.
Right.
So, all right, this is a little wacky. Check this out. So this was Tesla's own marketing. It got pulled from their website. We don't know if that was because of YouTube or because they got asked by Cookie Monster's creators to not show this, or maybe it just freaked out little kids. I don't know why.
I think
It's a little freaky.
it's a little. I mean, it shows what Sentry Mode does. Most thieves are not going to go in through the windshield.
No,
I don't know what most Cookie Monsters are going to do.
that's probably what they do.
It's probably what Cookie Monsters do.
Don't leave your cookies just sitting out there. Cover them up.
I think it was funny. It was a good way to show it. Kind of a kid-friendly version. It's not like a.
I don't know if
not
it's
like a
kid-friendly.
It's a little weird.
I get it.
No.
It shouldn't have gotten past. It should have been something that if I'm betting some employee did this and showed it to marketing, and they're like, "That's great, let's throw it up on the website." And I
Yeah.
think somebody at marketing should have said, "No, it's funny. We can show it internally around the company, but we're not going to put that on our website
Yeah.
because it's Cookie Monster. You should have rethought it out."
You think just from a copyright standpoint?
Definitely from trademark and copyright perspective, but also little kids don't want to see Cookie Monster attacking their car. He's a beloved character.
But
he
he's
eats cookies.
He's to get the cookies. He's not like
Sure,
he's
but
not like
he doesn't attack cars.
He has one thing where he just wants to get cookies, and he'll do whatever it takes.
He does not do whatever it takes. He's pretty polite when it comes to eating cookies.
No, it's not.
He's pretty
I
polite.
remember he would people would be like, "Okay, don't eat the cookies, Cookie Monster." And
Sure,
he'd
but
be
he
like,
didn't break into cars or attempt to.
He wasn't doing it to be mean. It's doing it because he has a problem.
That's true. He does have a problem.
I'm just saying.
It's true.
I mean, to me, it's less scary than if like Elmo were attacking the car.
Yeah, I don't know. Comment below who you think should have been attacking the car instead.
Yeah, I mean, write your own version of it.
There's definitely someone better. I don't know who it would be.
I
but-
think it's good because it was hilarious.
Yeah.
And that was all that really mattered. It was a good way to show your friends.
he hopped on the hood of that car, by the way.
Really?
That could have gotten dented.
I think it probably did. I don't know how much Cookie Monsters weigh, but anyway.
It's time for our Model
Yeah.
3 tip of the week now. You get to see it before everyone else. And this week, we get to play around with an Atari game. So let's do the intro. Hey everybody, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
And you're watching the Model 3 tip of the week. What did we do this week, Jess?
We played some Atari games in my car.
Wow, we do that for a living?
No, no, we do not. All right, so check it out. All right, so if we come over to the screen here and we scroll down, we can get to the fun Atari games. Now, a lot of you may know that you can use the on-screen controls to play some of these games, which is very fun. Now, for pole position, it'll tell you that you can use the steering wheel. Today we're going to be playing Lunar Lander. I bet you can't tell why. All right, so let's get to the game here. Obviously, I can play it with the controls here, so I can adjust my attitude and such using the controls, and I can even fire my thrusters. And it's pretty hard to see what you're doing because we're not in full screen or anything. Let's see if I can land using the on-screen controls here. I am definitely missing my landing site. Let's see if I can just correct it here. So, I mean, I'm able to kind of control my craft, but not super easily, because I don't know where I'm pressing here. And I blew it up. Okay, well, you know, I tried. All right, so I mean, I did as best as I could, but I couldn't quite do it using the on-screen controls. However, you can also use the steering wheel to control it. So this makes it a lot easier because now I can put it into full screen, which means that now the entire screen is a screen. So now I can use the steering wheel to control my descent. So I can use the button on the right here to control my thrusters, and I can use the steering wheel to adjust my attitude. So it's a pretty good control system. You give very, very slight controls to the steering wheel to get what you want. And if you give it too much steering wheel, it'll yell at you and say too much. I don't even think this is a landing spot.
And is this turning your tires?
Oh boy. It is turning my tires. Now, if I was in park and the car was off, I wouldn't be able to turn my wheels this far. So let me sort of show you what that would be like. So if you get in the car and it's off and you don't put your foot on the brake, you'll notice that the wheels don't turn because the power steering isn't on. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Jesse, I'm not going to be able to play my game, say when I'm supercharging, when the car won't have steering turned on. However, you can actually play the game with it like this because you can put in just enough steering to effectively get what you want. So even though the wheels won't turn, you can still control your game. Oh boy. Not exactly on the landing spot there. Nope. I tried my hardest. It was pretty close. Now, as you can see, you can play the game like this. There is a third way. There is a third way to play, and that is with a gaming controller. So, what you have to do in order to get this to work is you have to first exit your game. So if you had started a game, unfortunately, you are going to have to exit it. So you exit, you get your controller all hooked up. In this case, I'm using a PS4 controller hooked up using the USB, and that just hooks up to the USB port in the front here. All right, so now that your gaming controller is connected, you go back to Atari Games, and now I should be able to control everything using the gaming controller. So now I have pretty darn fine controls here. Let me see if I can set myself up for success. I know it's riveting gameplay. Oh, come on. Yeah, great landing, 100 points. I win. So that's 3 different ways to play your Atari games on the Model 3. You can use the touch screen, you can use the steering wheel, or you can use the controller. Good luck out there. Fly safe.
Wow, so I didn't know that you could plug a controller in there until we plugged a controller in there.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Only a matter of time before, I'm playing Red Dead Redemption 2 in my car while I'm supercharging. I'm
Nice.
going to want to go on a lot more trips.
I can't wait till they open up the App Store in the car.
And there's just tons of, you playing, like Fruit Ninja in
Where's
there?
Johnny? Oh, he's in the car.
Cookie Clicker.
Yeah.
Or
Farmville.
Soda Crush. All those awful apps. I'm sorry if you play them, but you know that they're bad for you. All right, thank you so much for joining us, our wonderful patrons. You guys rock. We're going to go do the Patreon shout-outs. Let's talk about these mugs first before we go.
Yeah.
These mugs are going to be at the $40 per month level.
Mm-hmm.
They are of very, very high quality. Here, wait. I'm going to move it in front of my face, and then the focus will focus on the mug. Boom. Ha-ha. Tricked ya. Now I get back to my face. Great. It all worked.
Yeah.
Just the way I wanted it.
Yeah, these are made in Wisconsin.
I have the little card
Oh,
here.
yeah. Made in Wisconsin. They are lead-free, food-safe, microwave-safe, dishwasher-safe. They're made by Sunset Hill Stoneware. And I want to give a big shout-out to Kevin Sears, who did all the research for us to find these awesome mug companies and narrowed it down for me. Handcrafted in the U.S., it's an eco-friendly, employee-safe facility using green initiatives. Yeah, so I mean, this is one of these mugs that's going to last like a lifetime, and we only got 40 of them made. So it's like never will be made again. Jesse and I picked the colors. It's like 2 colors, and it's a special design.
It looks really, really nice.
Yeah, this is one of those mugs that unless you drop it, will be around for many years to come.
Yeah.
So yeah, this will be at the $40 perk level. If you feel like supporting us at that level, thank you very much, and you'll get a cool mug.
Right. Also, I just want to mention we're about to do our. We haven't done it yet. You will have already seen it if you watch Tesla Time News. But if you do the thing where you like pause Tesla Time News and then go watch the Patreon bonus stories, which I don't think any of you do, but if you do, let me know. That'd be cool. The on-air feature.
Oh yeah, on-air perk.
So the $4 level is now on air. So instead of us just picking a question that you ask every week, you're going to actually be able to ask us yourselves through Discord. For those of you who are on Discord that are supporting us for more than $3 or more a month, please get on Discord.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Super awesome. This is where we're having the $4 perk where you're going to ask us these questions.
Right, and you probably don't know what we're talking about, but once you see it once, you'll get it. So
Yes. So
it's
we're going to
be cool.
go record that after we do the Patreon shoutouts, after we end the Patreon bonus stories, which we are going to do right now. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Now you know.